Good morning, Marco. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you again for joining. It's going to be fun. We're going to go over the essentials Power BI tools. We're
Yep.
going to chat about Bravo for Power BI and also DAX Studio. We do have a section also for questions. We're going to chat about any sources that you might have. I mean, we all know that you guys are the pioneers, like I said before. And again, thank you for sharing that information specifically related to DAX. And then at the end, we're going to close with final thoughts. Marco, why don't you tell us who you are? Tell us
Yep.
more about yourself. I know you're quite popular and famous because of the DAX information that you share with us, but there might be some people who don't know.
My name is Marco Russo. I work at SQLBI, where we produce content about DAX and data modeling for Power BI and Analysis Services, which are two technologies that share the common engine, which is the Tabular engine, which uses DAX as a way to describe calculations and to also query the semantic model. So we wrote several books. We continue to write articles and produce video every other week. We publish a new content on SQLBI about these topics. We also have a number of video courses because we have to pay the bills like anyone. So we sell video courses, and I travel a lot to deliver training around the world mainly about DAX, but also about data modeling and optimizing DAX and something like that. That's what I do for a living.
Yeah. And we chatted about this before. You travel a lot. So
Yeah.
how do you handle that? I mean,
I,
time zones are different. I guess it's your
I,
passion that drives you.
I just don't care anymore. So that's I just okay. I go there when you depart. You said okay. Now I go to this time zone, and you start behaving like that time zone, and that's it. I
Okay.
know it
No.
takes a while. The first years were crazy though. That is
Yeah.
not easy. I know now it's easy, but it was not easy at the beginning. Yes.
It takes time to get used to that. I mean, and also English is the language, right? That we communicate. So as long as
Yep.
we know English,
Yep.
so it's gonna be easy to communicate and share
Yep.
ideas. Now that's great. For those who have questions, please feel free to add these questions to the chat,
Yes.
and
Maybe
more
that
than welcome to ask anything.
exactly. And if I don't see the question, just stop me at any time because this way
Mhm.
it's more interactive. We can make it more interactive this way. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with Bravo for Power BI. I know you have a
Yeah.
demo, so
So
that'd be great.
yeah, basically I don't have slides, but
Mhm.
I know that if I use the slide and I don't have time for a demo, I want just to show the demo because the best way to present these external tools is by just showing it uh, live, right? So see
Mhm.
what they can do. So beside any initial presentation, the thing is that many years ago, Microsoft opened the door to create external tools for Power BI, which means that what was at the beginning a hack to inject, to intercept the communication between different parts of Power BI became a supported way to interact with the tool, Power BI Desktop. And by interacting with the tool, Power BI Desktop, we can do many things. You see that in my machine, I have maybe we can share the screen so it's easier to understand what I'm saying. So, for example, here I have a model open in Power BI Desktop. I have in the external tools, I installed a few tools that show up here. And the advantage of having the icons here is that when I click on one of those icons, I immediately connect that external tool with the model I'm building with Power BI. So this means that there is a live interaction that allow us to just query the model or edit the model or investigate about the performances or do something else. So there are many different external tools in the market. I think that the first one we created for Power BI was DAX Studio. And DAX Studio is one important part of the presentation. But I think we want to start with Bravo for Power BI, which is this other icon. And if you want to know more, because I will show you the tool, but actually Bravo has a website, bravo.bi, is a free open source tool, and you also have a GitHub repo where you can access the source code, create your branch, post your issues or your suggestions, and that's it. So this tool exists because we basically sponsored it. So we pay developers to create this tool. We would like to also continue to evolve this tool. Actually, there is something cooking. I don't want to say what we are going to do, but when it will be time, you will find new features in Bravo for Power BI. At the moment, we have 4 features that I will show you. And the idea for Bravo is to provide a simpler, easier, more immediate way for any user to do very common tasks. Part of them are also available in another more advanced tool that I will show you later, which is DAX Studio. DAX Studio was the first tool that started this need for external tools. And actually, DAX Studio, I think, is the reason why Microsoft opened and let's say officially supported it, because DAX Studio was a tool used also by Microsoft support to investigate performance issues or other issues for the customers, Microsoft customers, but they weren't able to, they weren't supposed to use this tool if this tool was not officially supported. So the best way to make it happen was that, okay, we support the diagnostic port that allowed us to connect to the model. And so that interaction has been allowed by this tool, to be honest. So, but let's start from the beginning. So that is the past. So if you're curious and you have questions, I can tell you stories. But let's see what we can do today. What's the point of having an external? Basically, what happens is the following. So let's go back to this model. So this model is a Contoso model. Just to take a look, this is the set of, say, tables I have in the model. I have sales, customer, date, currency exchange, store, product. I have a few measures like sales amount. For example, if I go here, I see the sales amount by brand. I can browse by other measures. I can include, for example, the margin percentages. So you see that is relatively quick. But if you look at the size of the model, the sales table has actually 10 million rows. Oh, sorry, I forgot to open Zoom it. Give me 1 second. So here, let's see if I can show you this. Okay. So we have, we have 10 million rows here. Now, that's the point. So how do you know that this model is big? You should go table by table, look at the sides of the table. But if you know how Power BI works, actually, the size of the table depends on the size of the columns. And so you might want to know what is the size of each column, because a column that has a small number of unique values usually is compressed more than a column that has many unique values. But how much? And how important it is. So that's the first question you might want to ask about your model. And so we are just 1 click away to get the answers. Because look, if I click on Bravo, I immediately have the information I wanted. I see that this entire dataset in memory is 400 megabytes. Usually the size is a little bit more than the size of the PBX file that you say, because when you say the PBX file, there is a higher compression of the data. For example, the dictionary, which is the list of the unique values for each column, is usually uncompressed in memory, but it is compressed in the PBX file. So it's no surprise that this number is bigger than the PBX file. But this number includes the size of compressed columns. And the idea is that the first view, so the first feature I'm showing you is the Analyze Model feature of Bravo for Power BI. So Analyze Model is the first thing we do. So Bravo connects to the model and says, okay, well, where are you spending memory? And I have immediately an idea. You see that I can browse here with the mouse, and I can see here the more expensive columns. What I see is that I just see the 5 more expensive columns of the entire model. And I also see that the customer key and the customer key here, they're used by a relationship, or they could be used by a measure that references them. But in this case, order number, name, address, these 3 columns are not used in a direct way by the model. It doesn't mean that they are not used. They could be used by some report, also by the report that I have in the PBX file. We don't have today an analysis of the dependencies in the report. So you have to be careful when you see these unreferenced columns. It doesn't mean they are not used in the report. It means that they are not used in the model, in the measures of the model. That's the meaning. So this means that, but if you look at that, okay, order number, imagine that you are creating the model and the model has not been published yet. So you're just defining the model and you created the measure that you need. Now the order number is here and it's very expensive. It's one of the more expensive columns. I cannot get rid of the customer key because this customer key is used by the relationship, but the order number is 14% of the entire model. You see this 14% here, right? You see that I can also control scroll. I can change the zoom of this. I'm not using a zoom it. I'm just zooming the window of Bravo. So Bravo is like a web page that you can zoom in and zoom out. And I can show you that this is 14%. Now, what about the smaller columns? Well, I can go in the detail, right? And now I have all the columns here. Or I could show these columns by table. You see that the sales table is 58% of the entire model. So for under megabytes, for more than 50%, it is just one table. And if I drill down this table, I can see the more expensive columns for this table. So this order number is 14% of the model, and you see that the relative size within the table here. So a lot of information are available this way in a very easy and immediate way. Now, what we're doing here, Bravo is actually using a library that is also used by DAX Studio. I will show you later that with DAX Studio, I have the same information with much more detail. Maybe that it makes sense to go straight to DAX Studio now, because it makes sense to see the difference. So in DAX Studio, I can do the same thing. But look, I have one click, I open DAX Studio. I will later explain you the UI of DAX Studio. Number 2, advanced. Number 3, view metrics. So now I already made the 3 clicks, and now I have this visualization that is much more detailed. We have a lot of information, more detail, but in reality, this number of information could be overwhelming if you just want to know, okay, I just want to know what is the biggest column. The additional information here could be very useful if you are a professional BI developer who wants to know every detail. Then you want to use DAX Studio. But if you just want to get an idea, a quick idea, one click away, then Bravo is the tool for you. So that's the idea. But underneath, we're using the same library. Indeed, this library allows me to do another important thing. For example, imagine you are a consultant and you work for a customer, so you created a report for your customer. Now, when you developed the report, you created the report with a subset of the data. Then you provided the report to the user. The user published the model on their Power BI service with the real data, and the model is much bigger. Now, the user is remote. You are not there, and you don't have access to their network, but they have a problem. They say, oh, there is something strange. It is going out of memory. You want to know more about the model, the actual model, but you don't have access to the data, and the model is big. So what you can do, you can say, look, just open DAX Studio, one click, and click on this button, VPAX. The VPAX format that we can export is like a zip file that contains all the information, statistical information about the model. We don't have data. We just have the list of the table names, the column names, the number of unique values in each column. That's it. And with this information, we can provide the same detail that you have seen in Bravo and in DAX Studio about the information about the model. But not only that, look, let me show you what I'm doing now. So if I save this file, right? I say C in demo, I save this Contoso 10M VPAX file, okay? So now I save this file, I open a browser, File Explorer, sorry, not a browser. I go in demo, and I look for this file, Contoso 10 VM VPAX file. So let's see if I can show you. Okay. First of all, the file is just 27 kilobytes. Okay, so the file is a small file. And I could send this file by email. Now you say, Marco, we don't trust this. The customer will never send by email a file that has been extracted from their data. Okay, no problem. Just rename this file. This is a zip file. Okay, zip file. And once I rename to zip file, I can extract this. So extract all. And now I'm extracting the content of this file into a folder, because this way I can show you what we have in this folder. These are files, are text file, JSON file, XML files. Let me show you. Let me open Visual Studio Code. 1 second only. So I open this folder. Here we go. So I'm open the folder where I have these files, so that now with Visual Studio Code, I can show you the content of these files. Because this way you can make sure that we are not exporting any sensitive data at all. So the file here, just compatibility, DAX model. This is the list of the measures, column, table names. That's it. So no sensitive, no content of the table. And the VPEX view has statistical information, number of unique values. You can inspect this file and make sure that we are not exporting the name of the customer, the revenues, nothing like that. And model being file, which is another set of metadata. Now, once you say, okay, this is safe, you imagine that we go back to demo, we go back to our Contoso zip file, Contoso 10M zip file, where it is here. I've renamed this to VPEX again. And remember, I asked the customer to export this with Bravo, because Bravo is an easy tool to use. Then I receive this file from by email, and then I go back to, then in my machine, I open DAX Studio. And in DAX Studio, I can import metrics, and I can open the VPEX file. Double click, and I open the VPEX file. Now I have the information that I extracted from Bravo in DAX Studio with the same level of detail that I can have in DAX Studio, but the file has been extracted by Bravo. So that's a very useful tool. When I assist a customer, we do a little bit of remote consulting, and sometimes I use I help customers finding performance issues. I never start a conference call without receiving the VPEX file in advance, because this way the call is way more productive. I have a local view of everything the customer has in terms of data volume in each column. I can better understand what is going on in terms of performance issues that they could have when they create the model. So that's an invaluable tool that I use every day. So as you see, the Bravo has been built with this idea. It could be used by the user just to get local help, but it can also be used as a way to allow an end user that doesn't have high skills to extract the information and to be assisted by an expert on the other side of the call. Any questions so far? Not yet.
No questions. It's just people are showing here your appreciation for your content.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
So what you're saying is, with these tools, we are basically figuring out the bottlenecks, trying to understand where we're having performance issues, correct?
Well, a performance issue, or simply you want to reduce the size of the memory of their model. So, for example, if you need a remote assistance, you can provide a lot of information to your consultant without actually providing access to the model. And for example, I don't want to make promotion, but just to give you an idea, if you use this tool, daxoptimizer.com, this tool is a tool that is a service that analyzes your model and finds the bottleneck in your model. Now, how does it work? You create an account, you send the VPEX file, and after 1 minute, you have a complete diagnosis about your model, about the measures of your model, finding the bottlenecks and finding all the stuff. And again, because the VPEX file is not extracting data, it's safe. Even in that case, though, if you really say, okay, but the name of the columns are sensitive, I don't want to send them. Okay, we have a tool to obfuscate the names. So we actually don't need the real names. We can use fake names in the file sent to the service, and then you keep the dictionary when the file is sent back, so that you can see the real names, but you send to the service, let's say, a version where every table is A, B, C, D, so no meaningful name. So because the service doesn't really need the real names. So that's just an example. So this VPEX file is like a standard we use to communicate statistical information about the model. That's the idea. Because the bin file is just the structure, but it doesn't include the statistical information. Without the statistical information, you have no idea about what could be the cost of each column or the cost of a relationship when you have a complex query and so on. Okay.
We have a question, Marco. So is this file with the structure of the model could be passed to ChatGPT to explain in the model I'm using?
Well, you can certainly pass the file. I don't believe that you will get a meaningful answer, but that's a different problem because, guys, you have to understand ChatGPT always provide an answer. The question is it correct or not? That's the problem. As long as you just want to see something working, that's fine. But if you need the exact answer, with the current state of the technology, I don't think you can trust the result that you obtain. I understand is a delicate topic because also Microsoft is investing a lot. At the moment, I don't have an evidence that these models can even just increase the productivity. And I use I use a lot of AI technologies. I don't see for declarative languages like for context-dependent languages like MDX and DAX, and in part also for SQL, these models don't work well. So they're supposed to make you more productive, but to be honest, the effort required to get a reliable answer is more than the effort that you need to just write the code. So I don't see at the moment in the current state, I don't see the advantage. While if we move our focus on other languages, I would be stupid not using ChatGPT or not using Copilot for I don't know, C#. Why not? I mean, it's very, very useful. I use it because it makes me more productive. Could I write a code that it writes? Yes. Could I write it faster than ChatGPT? No. I mean, it tells me. Sometimes it doesn't work, but overall, it's an advantage. With DAX, the problem is that if you write good DAX code, you don't have to write much code, but it has to be correct, and every comma matters. I don't know. I don't see. It's a false illusion that you get an advantage by using ChatGPT to get a meaningful information. If we talk about the performances, totally, we're so far from anything useful that doesn't. I'm just talking about getting something that works, okay, not something that works fast. If we talk about optimization, we are so far from something that works. No,
that's a good point.
We are a few years far from that. Not even months.
As of June 15, 2024, that's what we think.
Tomorrow is another day. I'm
Exactly.
talking about today. So I'm talking about today. If you ask me what happens in 2 years, in 2 years, the problem is that it lacks a lot of information. When you ask a question, even though you provide the model is not enough. Think about this. If I give you a model and no other information, are you able to extract meaningful information? Probably no, because many names that you find in the tables have a meaning that depends on the particular culture and knowledge of the company. So if you do an example with Contoso, everything is easy and simple and it works. Let's move our focus on a real model. Take a look at how you name tables, columns, and measures in your real model, and think about what happens if outside of your company, you ask to another person of another company in the same sector to look at your data. Will he or she be able to understand the numbers without asking you any question? I have some doubt. Because unless you are in an industry that is very standardized and uses always the same names, for example, in finance, more or less, you use the same names for the P&L statement. But as soon as you go outside of the finance department, it's a completely different story. So I don't know. Again, we can talk for hours about that, but it's a long conversation. Okay, so let's go back to, sorry.
Yes.
Let's go back to...
we do have another question if you have any tips to reduce the AS model cost.
AAS means Azure Analysis Services. So you can
Mhm.
use DAX Studio with Azure Analysis Services, yes. Reducing the cost means that you have to, let's say, reduce the size of the model so that it requires a lower Azure level. To be honest, the easiest way to save money is simple. You spend time creating a script that turn off the service during the night and during the weekend with a button to activate on demand, and the user has to wait 2 minutes before using it. If you're serious about saving money, you save 50% just this way. I mean, if you say no, but okay, so if the answer to this question is yes, no, but we cannot, so you don't care about 50%. Any other way to save would be less cost saving. Okay, so if an easy way to save 50% is something that we cannot do that, it means that it is not important for your company. Because if it was important for your company, they would say, okay, when we need it on a Saturday morning, we press a button and we wait 2 minutes. That's fine. There is a simple way to save money if you are serious about saving money. Let's go back to Bravo, because actually analyze model is just the first of the features. There are other 3 features that are, let's say, important, I would say, because the first one is format DAX. So, we say if it is not formatted, it's not DAX. And the idea is the following. Let me go back to the model. So, for example, if I go to Contoso here, and I go to a measure. Now, in this case, I don't have complex measures, but let's say that you see, let's go here. You see, for example, sales amount. Okay, so sales amount is defined this way. So let me write a convoluted version of sales amount just for the sake of creating something more complex. So let's say that I have a variable sales table is equal to filter sales where sales quantity is greater than 0. I'm just writing stupid code. It's just to show you something that requires to be formatted, because otherwise is not very easy to understand. So the quality of the code I'm writing is very low. Don't pay attention to that. I just want to write something so that we have not a trivial. So this code is basically probably returning the same result as the previous one, but is harder to read. Okay, so we say if it is not formatted, it's not DAX. So if I write the code this way, assuming it works, when I read it, I spend time trying to understand, to figure out whether if a parameter of some X or a parameter of filter, I have to spend time on it. So if I format the code, so one way to format the code is the following. I copy the code, I go to the website, I go to daxformatter.com, I paste the code, I format the code, and I copy and paste this code back to Power BI Desktop, one measure at a time. Or with Bravo, I'm just one click away. I can say, oh, look, these are my measures. This is sales amount. Sorry, I have to refresh this. This is sales amount with the code I have now. And I can say just format it. So I can select the measure and I can format it. Or I could select all the measures. And if I select all the measures, I say, I want to format all the measures. So with one click, all the measures are formatted. And now if I go back to my Power BI Desktop, the measure is formatted in Power BI Desktop. One click, you format everything. So that's one feature we have in Bravo. And another feature we have in Bravo is the ability to export data. I will show you manage dates at the end. Export data means that, let's say that, okay, I want to export 10 million rows. Okay, let's start with something simple. I want to export, let's say, these 2,000 products and these 74 stores in an Excel file. So I select 2 tables and I export to an Excel spreadsheet with summarization of the export. So I choose the file, so ctemp contoso 10m, and I open the file in Excel. Here we go. And now I have my data in Excel. That's it. So one table, product, one tradable store, and the summarization of the export. So if you want to export data, and believe me, this is one of the more commonly used features in Bravo, just export data to Excel. Or If you have more than 1 million row, for example, we have 1.4 million customers. Well, I want the customers in a CSV file because, of course, you have a limit of 1 million rows in Excel. So let's export that in a CSV file. You have more parameters for a CSV file, but you export the selected file. So ctemp customers CSV and select folder. Oh, sorry. Select folder is this one. Sorry. I just have to select folder here. Because if I select multiple tables, each table is a CSV file name in that folder. So that's the reason why we export by folder. And of course, 1.5 million, it takes a few seconds more than just 1 millisecond. But here we go. Now we exported 1.47 million customers here. And if I go to customer, I have my table here. So I open this table, for example, in Visual Studio Code. And now in Visual Studio Code, I have my CSV file with 1.5 million customers. Let's go here. Here we go, 1.468725 row. Okay, so that's it. So if you want to export data, that's easy, fast, it just works. We're using Power BI Desktop, but in reality, I could use Power BI Service. I can connect to my powerbi.com. I could connect, for example, to my Contoso 100 million rows, 100 million orders in this demo SQLBI. It will take a while because it has to hydrate this file. This is a 2 GB model on Power BI Service, but then I will have the same feature. So actually, once I'm connected to this one, I can see the same information we have seen for Analyze Model. I can see the same, I can use the same export data, and I can format the DAX code. Actually, the format DAX code doesn't actually write because we are not using, I think, no, I think this should work because we are using the XMLA endpoint. I don't remember this part, but probably yes. If you are using Power BI Premium per user, like in this case, or Power BI Premium capacity, this should work too. Managed dates is not supported because this model now is not compatible with this feature, but this is something I will show you later. So you can actually connect it to an external model. We don't support the connection to analysis services from Bravo because if you use analysis services, you're supposed to use DAX Studio because it's a more advanced tool.
No, that's great. So we can definitely connect to the Power BI server reports, and then we can also export data from there. More than 150,000 rows, which is the issue that we have.
You export as many rows as you want,
That's good.
as long as you have the access. I don't remember what is the privilege that you need, but if you can use Analyze in Excel permission, you can use this feature. So in order to stop people doing that, because you might have, oh, the administrator don't want this to happen. Well, you have to stop Analyze in Excel because Analyze in Excel basically does the same thing. And once you have Analyze in Excel permission, in Excel, you could do the same thing. And even though you are limited by 1 million rows, you can actually extract 1 million row at a time. So at the end of the day, you would export the same amount of data that you want. The limit of 145,000 is just the limit that they put on the REST API, but that limit doesn't exist in Analyze in Excel API. So managed dates is the following. So a model usually has a date table, right? Now, if you already have a date table, you usually don't need Bravo. For example, in this case, the model already has a date table. So if I go back to my model, I have the date table here, right? Because for some reason, when I imported the model, I already had this date table, or I already created it. Now, let's imagine I don't have this table. So let's remove this table. Delete it from model. Okay, I no longer have the date table. It's gone. I don't have the date table, right? Now I go back to Bravo. So if I connect to Bravo and I don't have the date table, what happens? Well, Bravo can create a date table for me. And in which interval? Well, I can choose, right? So I can say, well, I want to start in this year and I want to end in this year, or just scan the table. But if I scan the table, you see that here, in this area, you see a preview of the table that is going to be created. And to be honest, I don't want to start in this year. Why do I see this year? Because there is a birth date column in the customer table. So I say, I would like to get the automatic range, but only using a few columns. For example, the columns that I have in sales. because only in sales I have order date and delivery date. These are the only dates that I care about. So now you see that by choosing only sales, I see that I start in 2010. I like this more. But there is only one thing. Well, I don't want a standard calendar, right? You see that this calendar is the standard classic Gregorian calendar. What if I want a fiscal calendar? And I want the fiscal calendar to start in July. You can obtain a date table that has this. So you see that January is in the fiscal year 2010, but this is the quarter 3 of fiscal year 2010. So it's actually starting in July 2009 in this case. So in other words, I can obtain easily the date that I want. Or you want weekly calendar. Oh, we want a 445 starting on Sunday with this convention. And there are different settings depending on the type of the year that you want to create. Marco, how do we know more about that? Oh, well, you know what? Believe it or not, we also have documentation of this stuff. If you go to docs.sqlbi.com, you have Bravo for Power BI, and for each feature, you have a video that explains how the feature works. So if I start this, you will see the video with the presentation and many other things. And you also have, let's remove the audio here. So this is the video with all the explanation, but you also have a description here with all the parameters and links to other information about the details of this thing. So there are a number of information you can use. Now, let's say that I like this, and let's go back to a standard calendar just to make a simple example. And I chose this, and I also can choose which language I want. So let's say that you are not in the US, you are, I don't know, in Italy or in France. You can choose a different language. So everything is translated into the language, including the column names and the content of the column names. So you see the names of the day of the week and the month in the local language that you chose. Maybe I want to see also the holidays. Why not? Well, I want the holidays in the United States or in another of the countries that are supported. And then, while I'm here, why not adding the time intelligence? Let's do this for later. Let's start without the time intelligence, one thing at a time. So now I can see what is going to happen when I start. So the previous changes shows me what is going to happen to my model. So it's going to be creating this table by using this DAX expression. Now, you see the date is simply calling date auto template, but this is actually the DAX code that generates the date table for me. And this is how the holidays table is created and the holidays definition is created. And you can also see the data that is going to be created, because the holidays information will be used to populate the information about the holiday name, and also this will impact the fact that the day is a working day or not. So for example, the Friday or the 1st of January is not a working day because it's a holiday, it's New Year's Day. Okay, so now that you have this, you say, okay, you see this button, apply changes. Okay, so remember, in my model, I have removed the date table. So now I apply the changes and done. It's ready. So if I go back to Power BI Desktop, you see that I have a new table, date, plus other tables, but these tables are all hidden. You can ignore it. I just have to connect my date table to the proper dates. So for example, I want to connect order date to date, and I want to connect delivery date to date, right? Now, it just works. So I go back to my demo here, and I say, look, I want to see my data. So let's remove this one. I want to see my data, not by brand, but by date. You see the date has a hierarchy calendar. I just move the calendar here, and I can read down by year, by month, and by day. That's because this is the template I used. But what if I say, wait a minute, I like the idea that I could use, for example, the fiscal calendar starting in July. So I change my mind and say, wait a minute, I want to change something. So I go back here. So let me go back to the year here. So at this point, I go back to Bravo. I say, wait a minute, I want to change this, and I want to use the fiscal calendar starting in July. Okay, so I'm making a change this time because there is a table that has been created by Bravo, Bravo says, oh, I can replace the table, right? And if I replace the table, I no longer have to create the relationship because the relationship will still be used by the new table. But the new table now shows, and I go back to Contoso here, I had to fix because now I changed the name of a few columns. For example, I have a fiscal year. So the fiscal hierarchy is different from the calendar one. So if I use the fiscal calendar, you see that fiscal year 2010, fiscal year 2011 starts in July, ends in June. I didn't have to do much. So it's just a one click away. But it's not only that. Let's say, well, now I want the year to date for all my measures. What can I do? Well, you have to write the code, or you just go here and you say, well, I want to enable the time intelligence. And on which measures? All of them, or just a few of them. My suggestion is that if you have many measures, limit the time intelligence to those measures that you need. Because if the model grows with too many measures, let's say more than 1,000 measures, is too much. So if you have, let's say, 20 measures, you don't care. But if you have 200 measures, you probably want to apply the time intelligence only to the measure where it really matters. And so if I, in this case, preview the changes this time, I see which measures will be created by this calculation. And each of these measures has the proper calculation for the time intelligence. Now, many measures are created this way, but this is not an issue. Because if you look at this from the point of view of the user browsing the model, you see that the user still see the same measure that we had before. There is only a folder here with all the time intelligence calculations. You could open this folder, or you just type YDD, and I say, oh, let me check the YDD for the sales. Here we go. Year-to-date sales amount, done. And I had the year-to-date for the sales amount. Oh, I want to see the year-over-year for the sales amount. Year-over-year sales amount. Here we go. It takes maybe a while to understand the acronym for each time intelligence function, but basically all the measures are there ready to use. And this approach is more flexible than the calculation group, because with the calculation group, you will not be able to do something like that. If you look at this report, I have the sales amount, the margin, the year-to-date of the sales amount, but not of the margin. So you want to get only a few combination of a few measures with a few time intelligence calculation. Think about that. With the calculation group, you cannot in the same matrix. But here you can, and you don't have any restriction. And more important, you didn't spend more than a few seconds to create all these measures. I created like probably 100 measures now. So it's just 1 second away from that. These are the features here. Well, what if you want to customize that? Well, you will find in the documentation in the video, you can open a custom template, because what we have is a list of predefined templates for the date table and for the time intelligence calculations. If you want to standardize in your company a particular calendar and particular time intelligence calculations, you can just customize a few JSON files and provide a customized template. And this template can also publish in your Active Directory so that you can restrict your user in your company to always use the same calendar. You can also remove the access to the standard templates if you want. You will find everything in the documentation for this. So that's pretty much what we have today in Bravo.
Bravo, 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 bravo. See?
Thank you.
Even the name is cool.
And the idea was just to, as you have seen, it's easy. It doesn't require much knowledge. Maybe, yes, when you want to use a few parameters here, better you spend time doing some tests and looking at the documentation. But actually, the goal was to make it easy to use, not require too much background. It should be easy. Mm-hmm. Now, DAX Studio is a much more advanced tool. Actually, DAX Studio doesn't have the integration with the templates, with the dates, but DAX Studio has the same features to export data, to format the DAX code, and to analyze the model. It is just a less automated version of these features, but with more control for you. So I will use both, to be honest, because for formatting the measures, actually DAX Studio doesn't format the measure in the model. DAX Studio can format the measure just in the DAX Studio editor, but DAX Studio never writes something on Power BI, whereas Bravo can actually alter the model, changing the measures, adding the table for the date, adding the measure for the time intelligence. So actually, Bravo is like tabular editor because it modifies the model.
There are actually 5 questions, but we can pick one.
No, if I'm fast, I hope that we can answer more than one. So,
okay.
What are some of most underutilized features in Power BI you think every user should explore?
Mm-hmm.
In Power BI? Oh, in Power BI, I don't know.
Maybe he's talking about external tools. Bravo, of course, we have to use it more, right?
Well, I think that many, every time I show Bravo, people say, oh, if I only knew this 1 year ago. Well, it has been it has been available since probably we have to produce more content about Bravo. That's
exactly. Yep.
Because we are cooking some new feature, I think that we will use the new feature to launch more videos and more content about it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Cool.
Then, what are some common mistakes beginners make when writing DAX formulas, or how can they be avoided? It depends on the user, because there are users who write DAX code. So there are different group of users who has Excel experience, tries to use DAX as it was Excel, but it's crucial to understand that you cannot access the previous row. So the physical sort order of the data cannot be used in DAX. You cannot use DAX this way. DAX is similar to SQL. You have to query the model to extract a particular row or a particular group of rows. So that's what you have to learn. And learning calculate and how calculate works is the first thing you should do.
Context. Yeah.
Yes. The issue of the people that come from SQL, they tend to write DAX like they write SQL. And the result is more code, slower, sometimes also wrong. So don't do that. In DAX, you should filter columns, not tables. Whenever you see filter table name, 98% of the times is wrong. Okay, 98% of the times you see filter table inside a calculate statement, usually is wrong.
We're in trouble, yeah.
There are cases where it makes sense, but actually you should filter which column you want to. You filter one column, maybe 2 columns. You don't want to filter it. You want to filter a column. You are working with a columnar-based engine, and the language supports that. Whenever you filter a table, you are asking the engine to do a much more expensive job, and sometimes also producing wrong results for a number of side effects that would be too long to explain. So from SQL, that's the common error. From Excel, is trying to get, oh, give me the next row, the previous row. No, you don't have the imagine that the rows are sorted in a random way, and you cannot rely on a sort order. That's what you have in DAX. What are some advanced DAX functions or techniques that can significantly enhance data analysis? Keep it simple. There is no advanced DAX. You have to learn the basics. If you have to learn 10 functions in DAX, you can write any calculation. Most of the DAX functions that you use internally, they call other DAX functions. You have to know calculate table, summarize, filter, all, values, distinct, if,
switch.
Now, yes, but you can use if. So the fundamental functions are 9, maybe 10. You can write any DAX code with those functions. It is just more verbose. A few functions are just shortcut on these functions. But if you don't know these functions, you will never be able to understand what the other functions are doing. So start from the basics. Keep it simple.
Basics is key.
Keep it simple.
Yes.
What are some upcoming features in Power BI or DAX that you are excited about? I cannot.
There you go. Show us.
No, I know, and I cannot say. So sorry. How do you see the role of Power BI evolving in the next few years, especially with advancing in AI and machine learning? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's unpredictable.
My personal prediction is that there is a big hype, too much hype today about the use of Copilot AI on everything. From my point of view, it's personal opinion, there is a wrong approach on this. It is possible to obtain something, but there is much, much, much more work to be done. Nobody's doing that. And so at the moment, I don't see a positive outcome because they are trying to take a shortcut. And the shortcut is just throw money on the problem, just throw data on a machine, and it just works. Oh, it doesn't. It will not work well, and it will not be reliable. At the moment, that is what I see. I'm ready to change my mind in a few months. But if I don't see a change in the approach, just throwing money on the problem is not a solution at the moment. That's my personal opinion, of course. So
awesome. No, we respect that, Marco. Quickly, tell us more about the sources. Where can we get more sources to master DAX?
So we have two books now. So the first book that you see, The Definite Guide to DAX, is a 700 pages book that has everything about DAX. The book has been written in 2019 and is still actual. So today we have a few new features in DAX, which are the window functions and the visual calculations, even though the visual calculations are still in preview, so they are still not technically released, as they are still evolving. Whereas for the window functions, they're useful, but they are also not fundamental. I mean, the real reason why window functions exist is to support the visual calculations. So I would say that the book that you see there is still actual. Of course, when visual calculation will be released, we probably will release a new edition.
Third version, third edition.
Third version. Yeah, but not before sometime in 2025 and not early 2025, because I don't see this feature to come to be. We have to wait Microsoft first. So it will take time. Optimizing DAX is a book that we released just a few weeks ago. It's a long work. We spent 2 years on writing this book and also the video course. And it is a additional 800 pages. So after you finish the first one, you have another one that is bigger.
There you go.
It is called The Brick. And there is a reason for that. Look at that. So you can use it for, you have to lock a door. It's very, very, it's 1.6 kilogram, I think is 4 pounds. I don't remember.
Wow, that's great.
It's huge. And as of today is, if you want to understand what DAX Studio does, that's the book. And also it covers imported models, direct query, composite models. It pretty much covers everything. And it's available in several versions. If you get the video training though, you get the PDF for free. So if you want both, just get the video course, because with the video course you get the ebook included. And the video course is 40 hours of lectures plus.
Wow.
You call all the demos, all the documentation. It's a lot of time, but we spent 2 years producing it. So it's a significant amount of work for us, but also it requires time and dedication. I don't think it's for everyone, to be honest. If you do this for a living, if you pretty much work mainly by creating models, probably it makes sense. Otherwise, it's a huge investment, not just for the money, but for the time that it requires. Because once you buy the book, you still have to read it. It's just long. And you're supposed to practice. So it's not that you just read the book and now you know. No, you should read the book, then download the sample and try on your machine, because your machine will produce different numbers, compare the numbers. It's a long journey, very long journey.
That's right. What else do we have? We have your website. Tell us more about your website.
Yeah, SQLBI.com. You can find on SQLBI.com a lot of articles and content, videos. You also have the same videos that we publish on YouTube are also available on our website. They're linked in there. So if you search for a topic in our website, you restrict the search, or you go to Google, of course, but in our website, you can restrict the search within our content. And when you search for a problem in DAX, you probably can just look, because some article maybe is not indexed well sometimes on the search engine just because it's not new. But to be honest, if something didn't change, we didn't rewrite the article, even though probably we will do that. But actually, there are articles that could be like 10 years old, or maybe more, and they are still very, very, very actual. So there is no reason just because it's 10 years old. But well, it didn't change, so it's the same. So why change it?
Awesome. And then more appreciation here.
Thank you very much. Thank you
That's
very much.
great. And then here as well.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Marco. I really appreciate your time again. And again, guys, thank you for your time and thank you for asking questions. Stay tuned. There's more to come in the future. Marco.
Thank you very much. Ciao, friends.
Ciao, friends.
Ciao.